Hi, I'm Steven, and this is my good friend Alavi. And we absolutely hate navigating on a motorcycle. Let me tell you a story. So, about a year ago, me and Alavi picked up motorcycling as a hobby. I had always been fond of motorcycling ever since my dad took me out dirt biking when I was a kid. However, over the last year, we started to notice certain issues in regards to navigation. Like many motorcyclists all over the world, we use our phones for navigation. And just like many motorcyclists, I bought a phone holder to keep it in place. However, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but my phone is pretty busted up in this little corner. And admittedly, I made a mistake of buying a non-waterproof phone holder, which, if you know how the weather can be here in the Netherlands, was not particularly the best idea. So after learning from my mistakes and buying a waterproof phone holder, we went out again until we started to notice another issue. Namely, that phones are not great in harsher weather conditions. We've been having quite hot summers over the last few months over here in the Netherlands, and I'm going to be honest with you, my phone has been struggling when exposed to the sun for a prolonged period of time. The phone gets hot, the CPU starts throttling, causing GPS to struggle loading the maps or calculating the route. My battery starts draining insanely fast. So overall, it's not ideal. Another issue my friend Alavi came across was namely that navigating using your phone can be quite bulky. If you have a decently sized phone like my Pixel 6, it's pretty doable, although not ideal. However, if you like my friend have a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, let's say you have quite a dashboard on your steering wheel, which didn't help with the next issue we came across. So for me, and I can imagine for many of you, riding your motorcycle as a hobby is a nice way to relax, unwind, and to take a step back from the daily happenings of life. However, these days we have these little guys keeping us interconnected 24/7, which is great for keeping in contact with your friends, your family, arguing with strangers on the internet. But as you can imagine, it's not ideal if you're trying to relax and take a break from the busy happenings of life. The constant stream of notifications can not only be annoying and take away from the cruising and relaxing experience, but it can be quite dangerous as it also distracts from the road. And I think the last thing we need is to increase the global road accident count, which, out of curiosity, could you quickly look it up? So apparently, a quick Google search shows like 120k injuries in Europe back in 2019, which, oh, that's quite a number. But to continue our story, the issues we face concerning the size, the struggles phones have when dealing with harsh weather conditions, the distraction caused by notifications and phone calls, and apparently the fact that engine vibrations seem to be not particularly good for the health of your phone components, such as the battery or the camera. This all led us on the path of looking for a motorcycle GPS solution that would solve these issues we were having. To find a fitting GPS solution, we set up the following criteria based on the issues we were experiencing and what we valued in our solution. The criteria were as follows. The GPS unit had to be small and compact, it shouldn't be too much in the way or take up too much of one's field of vision. Preferably, it should also have a neutral design that doesn't clash too much with the design of a motorcycle. It should be affordable. GPS systems can go quite high up in price, you've noticed. We were aiming to look at the lower price end of available systems. And as we learned from our first mistake, it should obviously be waterproof and resistant to the elements, which to be fair, most GPS systems already are. Preferably, it should also not have too many user features that would just clutter up the screen and likely drive up the price higher whilst providing no real benefit. And lastly, a very important one for us, we want to look for open source solutions. Look, we value privacy, security, and transparency, but especially in this day and age with constant news about data breaches, vulnerabilities, or just people's data ending up on these massive data dumps on the dark web. That's why we're looking for a GPS solution with either an open source app where we can audit the code, or if it's embedded into the device, the possibility to use an alternative firmware, or the possibility to use an open source third-party app instead. With this in mind, we looked through a bunch of GPS solutions for motorcycles and ended up with absolutely nothing. At the time of writing, GPS systems like the ones sold by brands such as Garmin or Chigee, with models such as the Garmin Zumo or the AEO5 or the AEO6, are simply way too large and bulky for us to consider. aside from also being in a higher price range when it comes to GPS systems. TomTom with its rider model matches our search a bit better in terms of price range and size. However, it is still not what we're looking for. Lastly, Beeline with its Moto 2 matches our needs exactly when it comes to size. It is a bit pricey, although in the lower price range compared to the other GPS systems, and it seems to have the most neutral and universally applicable style out of all the options available. However, for us, it seems to lack in the other departments we're looking for. When it comes to features, we found all GPS systems just about missed the target. For example, the higher and mid-end models, such as the Garmin, the Chigi, and the TomTom, do have more features. However, many of which we're unlikely to use, such as smart notifications. On the other side of the coin, we found that Beeline applies a more minimalist approach, which is nice until it lacks one of the features you're looking for, such as being able to control your music straight from your navigation unit. Furthermore, as mentioned by people such as Luke Hilby, it lacks proper offline navigation support, which, if you have been cruising abroad or even for us as close as Germany, is something you'll find surprisingly often and is a complaint that many motorcyclists in the community have made as well. And lastly, app integration. I want to start off saying that all GPS solutions we consider allow for the importing of GPX files. However, at the time of writing, they all seem to handle this differently. Some options like TomTom allow for the importing using USB, whilst others like Beeline or Chigi allow the uploading of GPX files using their closed-sourced app. And you have parties like Garmin which allow both the upload of GPX file using USB and using their proprietary app. However, as you can most likely hear, most of these options require utilizing the closed-source app provided by the manufacturer, of which we have little control and insight into. So, considering none of the GPS systems fully match our needs, me and Lavi say hi Lavi, decided to put our years of IT, development, and in my case cybersecurity experience to use and create our own GPS system that is small, compact, and has a neutral design, is affordable compared to all the other navigation systems, is obviously resistant to the elements, implements features we actually require such as offline navigation and music control, and lastly implements open source into the solution. But we don't want to create a solution that's only useful for us. We want to make it widely available and create a solution that's also useful for you, dear viewer. So I invite you to follow along, get involved in the project, share it with anybody you think might be interested in the project. We'll be posting videos in regards to the development of the navigation solution over this channel here. In the next and future videos, we'll go into more depth about what we're actually going to make, how the product is going to look, its architecture, what programming language we're going to use, and many more details. If there's any suggestion you might have, please leave them down in the comments below. We read each and every one of them. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.